This is the first installment of a family's travels and adventures. A family that successfully navigates through as much of the world as possible. A family that explores the most treacherous of landscapes and environments with tenacity and grace. A family that flawlessly lives a life of danger, intrigue, and mystery. A family that fears no new challenge. A family that fears no new experience. A family that...
Are you okay?
Never mind, scratch all that. They're a bunch of knuckleheads. That's me, Jeremy, your narrator through the Eginoire family adventures. That's my wife, Brienne. I think our love of travel really took off when we had the chance to study abroad together in Australia. That's where I asked her to marry me. She said yes. On our way home to the U.S., we backpacked through New Zealand. We also traveled with some good college friends to Mexico. We honeymooned in Jamaica. And explored parts of the U.S., including magical Fenway Park. This was before we were blessed with a lot of trouble. Speaking of trouble, these are our three daughters, Amaya, Addie, and Alyssa. Each have their own hearts, minds, talents, and interests, but they all love to travel, explore, and try new things. They do love each other, but don't let the pictures fool you. It's not always all arms around each other in a "I really love my sister" type of way. But really, as far as kids go, I'd say we got pretty lucky. In the summer of 2017, we had a great time in Parker, Colorado for a family reunion for Bree's side of the family. After the reunion, we struck out on our own and hiked in the mountains, then went ziplining and whitewater rafting in Canyon City. It was this trip when we realized that maybe the girls were getting old enough for some more daring and exciting activities. Later that summer, after we had a taste of hiking and exploring Colorado, we decided to complete the Iowa Waterfalls tour. Yes, there are elevation changes and waterfalls in the beautiful, God-blessed state of Iowa. It was actually on this trip when I received a phone call that would change our lives a bit. But more on that later. We really had a good time on this trip. Unfortunately, when we arrived at Pikes Peak State Park, a tornado came through the town of McGregor. We really dodged one here. The tornado touched down at 6:08 p.m., which was a close call because we took shelter in a small park bathroom with about 60 other people at about 6:05. Tried to keep it lighthearted, but after we exited, we realized just how close we came to a really bad situation. But don't worry about your fearless travelers. Even though the town wasn't quite as lucky, we came out safe and sound and finished our journey. Remember that phone call I mentioned? It was a supervisor from an airline at the airport letting me know that I was being hired part-time. This meant my family would be able to fly standby to locations all over the world for little to no cost. With a couple coin toss decisions for our first trip, Bree and I ended up in downtown Atlanta, where they happened to be having their annual Dragon Con. We saw a lot of interesting people, including this green guy with the sword checking his Tinder app. Later, we were able to take the girls on their first plane ride, and as you can see, a lot of time in the airports over the past several months has led to some really in-depth family conversations. Anyway, we went back to Georgia where we hiked to the top of a mountain. It poured about the entire time we were there, but we had a great time, and we learned that the girls could handle travel by air. During winter break in 2017, we went out of the country as a family for the first time. Seat availability determined our destination would be St. Martin. That's where we met this mama hermit crab after she pinched my toe while we were swimming. It was definitely a highlight for the girls, so it was worth the sore toe. We were only there a couple days, but it was warm, peaceful, and it was definitely not Iowa in winter. Winter and spring of 2018 brought a few of our most memorable and exciting destinations. San Diego in January, then Vancouver in Alaska during spring break in March. The seals and sea lions in La Jolla and whale watching off the coast were incredible. It may sound cheesy, but whales are truly majestic to see up close. We also went to the famous Hodads for dinner. The next night we were able to meet up with a friend we studied with in Australia. It was so cool seeing her and meeting her family. Flying standby sometimes requires some patience and creativity. I'm glad it does, because otherwise we wouldn't have ended up in Vancouver for a couple days. It's a very underrated city and area to visit. We stumbled all over a mountain in snowshoes, and then ended the night with some ice skating. The next day we hiked on a nerve-wracking suspension bridge, Indiana Jones style. After renting a car from Vancouver to Seattle, we lucked out with the last 5 seats on the flight to Anchorage. Our family was heading to Alaska. We did some road tripping, hiking, sightseeing, and skiing. So Alyssa was the only one to ski into a tree, and I was the only one to bite it flying down the slopes. But it's only because I went over a steeper section. For real, seriously, no matter what Bree tells you. She thinks she's so cool. Same with Addie and Amaya and their non-falling selves. And then the highlight of our trip, and one of the highlights of our lives. Feel your presence. In your absence, shut the door. Oh, 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 oh. House on fire, leave it all behind you. Oh, 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 oh. Darkest night, let the lightning guide you. In early summer of 2018, we made a trip to South Carolina. We visited Fort Sumter, where Alyssa set out to become a junior ranger by finding different historical facts. She even got sworn in. We were pretty proud of her. The heart is a blue. We also visited a fire museum and had some beach time. But the main reason for the trip was to visit old friends. Remember when I told you Bree and I studied in Australia? Well, here are some of the Americans we studied with so long ago. The traffic is stuck. It was a fun reunion. Meeting spouses and seeing our kids play together was awesome. Cannot wait until the next reunion. Later that month, Bree and I were also able to take a quick trip to Napa Valley in San Francisco. It was a good time to see new places, catch up with each other after a long school year. Later that summer, our goal was to get to Sydney, Australia. Well, we ended up in Hollywood and then Hawaii instead, which did not suck. After seat availability wouldn't allow us to get to Sydney, we decided to kill some time at the beach and hiking to the Hollywood sign.
Trees of green and red roses too.
The next day, we arrived in Kona on the Big Island. We used an awesome self-guided touring app that directed us to lava fields, lava tubes, hikes with gnarly trees and ancient petroglyphs,
skies of blue and icy clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark
waterfalls,
and think to myself,
beaches, and snorkeling. We even hiked down and made it back up the third steepest road in the world, Waipeo Valley, with just a couple dagger-filled looks from Bree. Later, we made a 2-mile hike across some rugged but beautiful terrain to an amazing green sand beach. The view and swimming here was amazing. It was unforgettable, and it was well worth the hike.
How do you do? They really say I love you.
Once it started to get dark, we decided to head back. Surely Bree would be okay with repeating this hike in the dark, right? Wrong! Luckily, we were able to participate in some illegal activity and hired a local gentleman to smuggle us back to our Jeep. Although we had some hesitation, flying down the beach and navigating narrow and bumpy cliffs turned out to be one of the coolest parts of our trip, even if we almost lost a girl a time or two along the way. I mean, we do have 3 of them. We ended up making it back just before dark and have an unforgettable memory that will carry with us forever.
So pretty in the sky.
On our last day in Hawaii, we went horseback riding in Waimea. It was an open range style of ride and an incredible experience for all. I remember closing my eyes at one point and just feeling the breeze and listening to the sounds and knowing that I was in an amazing place with my favorite people. Hawaii isn't a bad place at all if you like amazing beaches, great weather, and friendly people. I'd be okay if we made it back someday. After Hawaii, Bree and I stopped at home, did some laundry, ditched the girls with Mima and Grandpa, and caught a flight to Italy. We even scored some coveted Delta One seats with sleeping pods and everything. Our first stop was in Venice, such an amazing city. They have no streets, only walkways and canals for boats. They even had water ambulances. It was hectic in places, but we made sure to duck into alleyways to enjoy some gelato, a habit at least I continued every day we were in Italy. And of course, a trip to Venice wouldn't be an official trip to Venice without a gondola ride. It was such a surreal experience. From Venice, we caught a flight to Rome. We were sure to hit all the main sites, like the Pantheon. Trevi Fountain. Theater of Marcellus. But the main attraction in ancient Rome was the Colosseum. What an intriguing and awe-inspiring sight and piece of architecture. There's some whack stuff that happened there over the years. We also visited Vatican City and discovered that the Pope would be delivering a message on the day we were there. Neither one of us are Catholic, but we have family members who are, and besides, how could we pass up a chance to see the Pope on his home turf? It was awesome. We were also able to bring a rosary blessed by the Pope home to my grandma for Christmas. Sorry about that, siblings and cousins. The Vatican Museum and the Basilica of St. Peter held amazing works of art and pieces of history. We even got to see the steps the cardinals use whenever they elect a new pope. Finally, although I'm not really a post-what-you're-eating type of guy, I'll make an exception for Italy. We tried to hit off the beaten-path cafes for meals, and it was some of the most amazing food I've ever stuffed into my belly. Ever. So, with the exception of the record-breaking heat waves sweeping across Europe while we were there, Italy was a really neat stop. From Rome, Bree and I flew to Malta, a small island just south of Italy in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. It was one of the most unique and interesting places we've ever been. From stories from biblical times to the Crusades to the adoption of the Maltese cross by the fire service to World War II, this little island is full of amazing history.
You built a wall. Hope when the crowd screams out, you're screaming your name. Hope if everybody runs, you choose to stay. Hope that you fall in love and it hurts so bad. Hey, the only way you can know, you give it all you had. And I hope that you don't suffer, but take the pain.
But for all its history, it's also a place with some pretty sweet modern adventures as well.
You'll say, I did it all. I did it all. I owned every second that this world could give. I saw so many places, the things that I did. Yeah, with every broken bone, I swear I lived. Hope that you spend your days, but they all add up. And when that sun goes down, hope you raise your cup. Oh, I wish that I could witness all your joy and all your pain. But until my moment comes, I'll say, I did it all. I did it all.
We were able to explore water caves used by pirates to lose whoever was chasing them, and we saw the statue dedicated to the Apostle Paul, inspired by his time on the island. Malta is incredible. Belize was our goal during winter break 2018, but seats didn't work out and we traveled to Bermuda instead. Not a bad plan B, but Bermuda is expensive. Our first meal of appetizers and kids meals was over $100, so we stopped by a grocery store and got frozen pizzas and PB&J supplies for the rest of the trip. First stop was to the Bermuda Museum. This also marked the first time I was able to use the GoPro I got for Christmas, so I was all giddy.
That's where you wanna go to get away from it all.
Then we walked down to watch a dolphin show and get ready for one of Bree's bucket list activities.
Tropical drink melting in your hand. We'll be falling in love to the rhythm of a steel drum band. Down in
play with dolphins and swim with them.
Okay. Are you excited?
Yes.
Mom, are you excited?
No, I'm not excited.
I'm super excited.
Martinique, that Montserrat mystique. Put out to sea, and we'll perfect our chemistry. By and by we'll defy a little bit of gravity. Afternoon delight, cocktails and moonlit nights. That dreamy look in your eye, give me a tropical contact.
5 regions. Dolphins. And my mom was happy crying. She always wanted to do that. Now, she did.
We'll get there fast and then we'll take it slow. That's where
We were also able to walk on the Bermuda Railroad Trail,
we gotta go.
visit the Crystal and Fantasy Caves, and learn at the Bermuda Underwater Exploration Institute. One of my favorite days was when we defied any old people injuries cliff jumping at Admiralty Park. All the locals knew who the Americans were, because while they were in winter coats and scarves, we were jumping into the ocean. It was an Arctic like 70 degrees there that day.
Everybody knows a little place like Kokomo. Now if you wanna go and get away from it all, go down the Kokomo. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahama. Come on, pretty mama, Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go down the Kokomo? We'll get there fast and then we'll take it slow. That's where we wanna go. We gotta go. Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you to Bermuda, Bahama. Come on, pretty mama, Key Largo.
So as you can see, we've had a pretty fun past year and a half. From zip lining and whitewater rafting in Colorado, to dog sled rides in Alaska, to jumping off cliffs in Bermuda, we have been very fortunate to have taken some incredible trips to some faraway places at minimal cost.
And I started writing just what I'd say if we were face to face. I'd tell you just what you mean to me. Tell you these simple truths. Be strong in the Lord and never give up hope. You're gonna do great things, I already know. God's got his hand on you, so don't live life in fear. Forgive and forget, but don't forget why you're here. Take your time and pray. These are the words I would say.
Tried to fit in some shorter day trips or road trips when possible as well. From watching the Red Sox in Minnesota to a few trips to Wrigley Field in Chicago, we got in plenty of ball games.
You said you were hurting.
Not to mention some out-of-town softball tournaments with some of my favorite players. My cousin Jordan Bree and I also tried hammock camping for the first time. Stormed, so I'm glad Jordan was there or Bree would have left me for dead under a pile of wet leaves. But it was fun and hopefully prepared us for some longer trips in the future. Alyssa and Amaya qualified for cross-country nationals, so we also went to Reno for a weekend. My buddy Carlos and I even made a trip to Boston for Game 1 of the World Series. We weren't willing to pay what tickets were going for, but we had a blast. And any of you Red Sox fans will remember Big Papi's game-tying grand slam in 2013 ALCS. Or remember the iconic bullpen cop over here on the left? We met the guy. He just retired this year. Best of luck, Officer Horgan. But it's not always roses. For example, this is footage of the famous airport blast in St. Martin. We sort of tried it. To see our luggage there? It ended up in the ocean for a little bit. And this moose, in an attempt to get better looks, we went off the beaten path and got stuck. Led to us seeing this guy instead. Upgrade your tires if you're in Alaska. And the beautiful green sand beach? Well, Alyssa's glasses are right about there. But for any annoying bumps in the road, there have been so many wonderful things. A large part of relationships is shared experience. And these three girls are sharing a lot of experience. They're learning how to be flexible, and they're learning to live life without fear. And Bree and I have front row seats. We hope you can live life without fear as well. So I'll leave you with one of my favorite quotes. 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover.